In the 1990s, Europe was building cars that seemed almost eternal. The elegant line of Mercedes, the precise shapes of BMW, the sporty spirit of Audi, the solid reliability of Volkswagen. Every detail mattered, every design choice was deliberate. These cars weren't just machines, they told stories. They were symbols of quality, engineering and status. Every engine note, every turn of wheel reminded you that the car was more than metal and plastic. Then something changed. Plastic began to take over metal, screen replaced buttons, and breakdowns that were once rare became all too common. Cars that were meant to represent progress suddenly showed their weaknesses. Even in the 1980s, Volkswagen was already looking beyond Europe. The company entered a joint venture in China, laying the groundwork for what would become a massive new market. At the time, this move was bold and forward-thinking, a glimpse of global ambition. Yet while expanding overseas, some argue that focus on engineering excellence at home began to shift, hinting at the challenges that European automakers would face decades later. What went wrong? How did the vehicles that once inspired admiration and respect become fragile and unpredictable? In this film, we'll explore the rise and fall of European car makers, from the triumphs of the 90s to a time when luxury and reliability no longer went hand in hand. It didn't start with luxury, it started with necessity. After World War II, Europe needed practical, economical and durable cars for the masses. From the rubble emerged a wave of brilliant designs. The Citroën 2CV, the Volkswagen Beetle, the Fiat 500 and the Mini. These were cars where every element had a purpose. European engineers masterfully combined simplicity with genius. They focused on lightness, agility and efficiency. Ideal traits for narrow, winding European roads. It was in these small, unassuming cars that the philosophy which became the hallmark of European motoring was born. Form follows function, but it does so with elegance and character. Globalization and greed. The philosophy that once built legends for generations was facing a new formidable rival. Not from Japan or America, but from within its own boardrooms. By the 2000s, European brands were no longer competing on craftsmanship. They were competing on volume. The race was now for global supremacy, measured in sales charts and profit margins. The tool for this new war was platform sharing. A single cost-effective skeleton like Volkswagen MQB now had to wear the skin of a dozen different cars, from a practical Skoda to a premium Audi. The soul of the brand, once expressed in a unique chassis and driving feel, was being homogenized. This wasn't just efficiency, this was badge engineering, creating an illusion of choice where the fundamental heart was the same. The new corporate mantra was clear. You would hear it from earnings calls and press conferences from CEOs who were now masters of finance, not mechanical art. And the cost of this scale was identity. The bold, often quirky designs of the 80s and 90s, the character of a Saab, the elegance of the Peugeot, were sanded down in the wind tunnel of global taste. Cars became heavier, larger, and visually safer. They were designed by a committee to offend the fewest, not inspire the many. The relentless pursuit of margin didn't just change how they built cars, it began to erase who they were. The pursuit of scale was one thing, but another, more insidious force was simultaneously reshaping the European car, one born of the best intentions. Safety and emissions regulations didn't just save lives and clean the air, they standardized everything. the very rules designed to make cars better and cleaner began to make them the same. To meet brutal crash test standards and aerodynamic demands, the silhouettes had to change. Hoods rose, pillars thickened, and the once distinctive profiles of a hatchback, a sedan, and an SUV began to blur into a singular bloated form. Inside, the revolution was digital. The intimate driver-focused cockpit, with its unique array of analog gauges and tactile buttons, was replaced by a universal language, the glassy, fingerprint-smudged screen. The ultimate symbol of this new era was crash test, a necessary life-saving ritual, but one that rewarded conformity above all else. The car was engineered to pass a specific brutal exam. In doing so, something intangible was sacrificed. It was the ultimate triumph of form over soul, because the soul of driving is tactile. It's the click of a switch, the sweep of a needle, the feel of weighted knob. But in the name of efficiency, safety and perceived modernity, this soul was digitized into oblivion. The character that was felt through your fingertips was now hidden behind a menu. The European car, once a testament to mechanical artistry, had become a prisoner of its own progress. Electrification and the Chinese challenge. Just as Europe was grappling with its own identity crisis, the ground shifted completely. The combustion engine, the very heart it had perfected, was being phased out. And in the race for the electric future, Europe was caught slipping. The mantra of the new era was brutal in its simplicity. While Europe debated, China built. While European boardrooms were mired in internal debates about timelines and profit margins on their old cash cows, China was executing a national strategy. With state backing and a ruthless focus on the supply chain, especially batteries, brands like BYD, NIO and the reborn MG launched a blitzkrieg on the global market. They weren't just entering the race like a Kia in 90s. They were redefining it, attacking the very premium segments where Mercedes, BMW and Audi had reigned for decades. The numbers tell the story of a seismic power shift. A recent industry report delivered a stunning verdict. BYD sold more EVs in 2024 than a Volkswagen, BMW and Mercedes combined. Let that sink in. A single Chinese company, virtually unknown in the West 2 decades ago, now outsells the very pillars of the European auto industry in the most critical technological shift in a century. The playing field is no longer level. Europe is now playing catch-up on a track its competitor owns. The continent that once wrote the book on automotive excellence is now being schooled in battery tech, software integration and cost efficiency. The electric motor is simpler than a combustion engine, and in that simplicity, Europe's century of mechanical advantage simply evaporated. The Chinese challenge isn't coming, it's already here, and it's holding the blueprint for the future. Can Europe rise again? Is this the end of the road? Has the legacy of a century been permanently traded for scale and compliance? Perhaps not, because history has a funny way of repeating itself. Europe once led the world in engineering and design, and it still could again, if it remembers why people fell in love with its cars in the first place. It was about a feeling. The innovation of the Citroën DS, the purity of a 911, the democratized genius of the Golf, the visceral thrill of the E30. These cars had a soul. They sparked passion. They were more than the sum of their parts. That spark hasn't been entirely extinguished. You can see glimpses of it in the bold vision of the newest electric concepts. The ambition is there. The talent is still in their engineering centers. The question isn't can they build a great electric car. The question is, will they build one that we can love? The path forward isn't through chasing volume or surrendering to homogeneity. It's by rejecting the notion that a car is just an appliance. It's by building something with character, with desire, with the intangible magic that makes you look back after you parked it. The fall began when they stopped building cars for generations. The rise will start when they remember how.